We've been tracking the governor's race in Virginia, Abigail Spanberger versus Winsome Sears, also the entire statewide races, including the attorney general and lieutenant governor's races, too. The polls show it tightening. Today, there's this flurry of polls out there that show Abigail Spanberger with a 12-point lead. Sure, Jan. Yeah, we believe that. Don't buy it. Those polls are meant to sort of push Democrats to get excited about the race, and it's to suppress Republican votes, but nothing suppressing Republicans in Virginia right now. We're going to show you exactly how we can tell Abigail Spanberger is panicking. The Democrats are panicking. Their friends in the media are panicking. And Abigail Spanberger gave an answer to a question about those violent text messages by her buddy, her running mate, Jay Jones for Attorney General. Her answer, I mean, we've seen her flub some answers before, but what she said about those text messages will blow your mind. I'm going to show you that in a second, but first, let's start with Morning Joe earlier today as they're analyzing these races. Take a listen to what they said about Abigail Spanberger and how she's doing in Virginia.
It really is incredible when you have Abigail Spanberger, Mikey Sherrill, her background, all the different jobs that she has held in the military, and also like Alyssa Slotkin. Yeah. I mean, my God, these women are incredible. And to them, I would say, fight, because we need them. Yeah. We need them.
And
leading.
And Mikey is like, she's doing a ton of interview. You know, when I talked to them, when I was in the car, you know, it was this car, she'd gone from interview to interview to talk to, but, you know, you still see the anxiety.
Yeah, sure. Cheryl did have a few missteps in her campaign, but she still has, as you say, about a 5 or 6 point lead per polling. Spanberger's lead in Virginia a little bigger than that, but you know, both still competitive races here heading into the last couple of weeks. But to Mika, to Molly's point, I mean, this is something that a lot of Democrats are grappling with right now. As they've nominated women 2 of the last 3 elections for the presidency, lost both. There are some who say, well, we can't do that again. The stakes are too high. But of course, that does fall into the same misogynistic trap.
Other countries have no problem electing women.
I don't know if you could read between the lines like I could there, but that is desperation. We are 2 weeks out from these elections in Virginia and in New Jersey, and they are already laying the predicate. They are already setting the narrative. The country's country. I was going to say racist because that's usually the narrative, but that doesn't work in Virginia, does it? The country's sexist. It's the misogynist trap. Oh, we can't nominate a woman. Think this through for a minute. Oh, we've just nominated Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris, and they were transcendently brilliant. They were perfect. Everybody loves them. They're not annoying at all. And they're so right on all the political issues, the most important issues to the American people. I mean, for crying out loud, look at all the newspapers that endorsed them. And yet they wouldn't vote for them. Why? Because the American people are sexist. And now they're looking at these 2 women, these 2 little cookie cutter cardboard cutouts of the stereotypical affluent female, liberal, suburban mom who, frankly, I mean, I know a lot of affluent suburban moms, and they're cool, and we hang out and drink wine together and laugh and joke and have fun. Can you imagine hanging out and having fun with these 2? These 2 are every man's nightmare about that white suburban woman. And by the way, every woman's nightmare that I know, too. There's nothing real or genuine about them. They're like fingernails on the chalkboard when they deliver a speech or sit for an interview. We'll show you plenty of examples of Abigail Spanberger doing that. But think this through for a minute. We have this incredible dynamic woman, Abigail Spanberger, and she's struggling, and she might not win in Virginia, and clearly it's because the voters are sexist. She's running against a woman. So let me get this straight. Abigail Spanberger loses, and Winsome Sears wins, and it's because Virginians are sexist. But what about if Winsome Sears loses? She's a woman. Doesn't that also prove that the voters are sexist. I'm not smart enough to sit at that table with those brainiacs, Molly Jong-Fast and Al Sharpton. My intellect doesn't match what MSNBC is providing their morning show, but I would love for one of those geniuses to explain the sexism to me. Explain to me how Abigail Spanberger losing to a woman proves that there's sexism. Which brings us to the fingernails on the chalkboard. We've talked about the Jay Jones text messages, the ones. This is the guy that the Democrats have nominated for Attorney General to be the top law enforcement officer in the state of Virginia. And he was caught sending text messages to a colleague about the Republican Speaker of the House in Richmond, Virginia, saying that he should get 2 bullets in the head over Hitler and Pol Pot, saying that he would only see the light on certain political issues in Virginia if his wife had to cradle their 2 murdered children in her arms. He said that more police officers need to be murdered so that they would change their position on political issues that matter most to Jay Jones. That's who this person is, right? We've talked about these text messages and the political fallout. But I have to apologize to you, my dear viewers and my dear listeners, because I realize now that in the several weeks we've been covering this story, I have missed out on the real victim in this entire story. The person who's been hit hardest by it, the person who has really felt the most pain, the person who has really been affected more than anyone else by Jay Jones and his anger issues and his violent rhetorics. And I'm not talking about Todd Gilbert, the man who supposedly is going to get 2 bullets. And no, not the 2 children who are fantasized about being murdered, or the mother, the grieving mother. No. They weren't the real victims. They didn't really feel the effect. Who's the real victim in all of this? Abigail Spanberger, apparently.
If I'm being very honest, we are 3 weeks away from an election in Virginia. I have worked tirelessly for 2 years running for this office. I announced in November 2023. The fact that I say this with all due respect because, I think it's a fair thing for you to ask about, the fact that I have to spend even a moment's time talking about somebody else's text messages from years ago rather than what I want to do as governor is something that I am deeply unhappy about. The fact that I can't spend every minute of the day talking about the plans that I have built out, not to be too hokey about it, but like my multiple pages of plans, my affordability plan, my education plan, my growing our economy plan, because of the, poor choices of another candidate, it is something that really clouds my view of all of it. And so, what we, the collective, we would have done, had this information come to light much earlier, I will say this, I would be much, much happier as a candidate if I could just talk about all of the things that I am for.
There you go. That quite possibly the most annoying conversation about politics that you can ever imagine. Abigail Spanberger and Katie Couric with a full minute, 21 seconds of Abigail Spanberger whining about the fact that she has to answer for her support of her violent running mate who fantasizes about the murder of little children. I can't believe that I have to lower myself to respond to questions like this. Don't you know I have a plan for affordability? Why aren't you more interested in that? This was pathetic. This was pathetic and the perfect example of what kind of weak leader this person is. I cannot believe that this race is even close. Winsome Shears should be up by 20 points, and it tells you how baked in the cake things are for Democrats, that they elevate this woman up to the level. A few months ago, they were talking about her running on the national ticket in 2028. That is pathetic, and it gets worse. She showed up on the news set, WTVR, I think this is Richmond, Virginia, asked about Jay Jones. Again, she really loves answering those questions. And take a listen to this lie.
So there's been a bit of a distraction, as you're well aware.
I'm sorry, I got to jump in there. Here's the news anchor setting up the question about Jay Jones, saying it's a bit of a distraction. Yeah, it's a bit of a distraction for Todd Gilbert and his wife as they have to lay in bed imagining that Jay Jones wants to murder their children. Well, it's a bit of a distraction. I'm so sorry that I even have to ask this question, because it's been a distraction from the things that we really care about, which is doing whatever we can to help you win this election, because that's what we're here for. All right, I'll start it again.
So there's been a bit of a distraction, as you're well aware. Last week, there was a debate among the attorney general candidates. Were you satisfied with the Democratic candidate, Jay Jones's apology for the texts that he had sent that were seemingly threatening the life of the then House Speaker?
Well, I want to begin by first, condemning clearly the texts that he sent to a colleague, and I condemned them as soon as I learned of them, and called on Jay Jones to publicly explain himself. And I think that he's been quite clear in his apologies and in his taking ownership of that poor choice. And importantly, at this point, we've got hundreds of thousands of Virginians who have voted. Certainly, I think that debate was an important one for being able to show the contrast and the difference between two different approaches, for voters to be able to make a clear decision as they vote early or on election day for who will best defend them or work for them.
Please, God, help us. I cannot live with 4 years of this up-talker as the governor. Did you hear? Jay Jones has taken accountability. Well, how? By doing what? What, because he got a dip in the polls and he's gotten some bad press? That's accountability? No, accountability is actually taking ownership for what you did and stepping down. Also, did you notice? He was very clear in his apologies. Yeah, because he had the issue, like 3 or 4 of them, because the first couple of ones, the first one, he blamed Donald Trump for the text messages he sent, and he never actually used the words, "I'm sorry." In fact, I don't think he's ever said, "I'm sorry." He said, "I regret." That's not the same thing. Has he called Todd Gilbert to talk to him? Has he had a face-to-face with him to explain himself? Did he explain himself to you? I haven't seen him explain himself. Abigail Spanberger is trying to rewrite history now and tell you that he's explained himself. Of course he hasn't. She's just a liar. Do you know how I can tell that she's a liar? And she is. I mean, she is. Listen, all politicians are liars. I get it. She is a CIA-trained liar. Literally, that's her resume. You know how I know? Sometimes liars give you little tells. Sometimes liars say things that on the face of it sound like it's fine, but then when you actually stop and you actually analyze the words they're saying, you realize that they're admitting that they're liars. Let me take you back to this interview with Katie Couric. Maybe you caught it. Take a listen to the very first thing she says when asked about the Jay Jones texts.
If I'm being very honest, we are 3 weeks.
Yeah, right there. See, that's the kind of thing a liar says. So I'm going to ask you this question, Abigail Spanberger, about the Jay Jones texts, okay? And her answer is, well, if I'm being honest, well, hold on, let me stop you right there. Have you not been honest up until now? No, I know it's just like a rhetorical flourish. It's just a manners phrase. It's just, don't take it so literally. No, I take it very literally. It's at that moment in the interview. It's at that moment in the campaign when she prefaces her statement with, you know what? Enough with everything else I've said. Now I'm going to be honest. That's an instinct. To say something like that suggests to me maybe you've got a problem with honesty. All right, back to Katie Couric here, who asked Abigail Spanberger about transgender policies. That's another thing that Abigail Spanberger just can't bring herself to answer clearly about. As you know, we've shown you the word salad multiple times. Take a listen to this new twist on her position.
And I think the real challenge is there's a lot of people who've never met a trans person, whether they're a trans youth or an adult. And so there's a real effort to engage in some level of fear mongering. And, I really do believe that we should, as a society as a whole, demonstrate a fair amount of grace to people who are confused about, when we're talking about bathrooms or when we're talking about sports participation, like what are we talking about? And I recognize, and I'm a parent. I've got 3 daughters in Virginia public schools, and so I understand the fact that there may be confusion about what is my opponent, as a very clear example, kind of threatening, and importantly, the willingness to fearmonger with or against kids who are trying to figure out who they are, who are in a challenging point in their life. Middle school and high school isn't easy for most people, let alone if you might be struggling with or trying to come to terms with your identity. And so just as a basic issue of principle, I do find it really objectionable that, that there would be kids who turn on the television and is in an effort to attack me, see, images of themselves sort of reflected as a villain.
Okay, so a couple of things here. We're going to break this down, but on that last point, just so you know, most of us are mostly concerned about Abigail Spanberger's position, not necessarily on children who are struggling, as she says, figuring out their identity, going to the locker room. No. We have a very real issue in Northern Virginia, Fairfax County, where an adult male multiple repeat sex offender who is now claiming he identifies as a woman, and he was caught in a woman's locker room with little children there as he was exposing himself and pleasuring himself in front of them. And he's been arrested and he's facing trial. And he was allowed to do that because of her policies. Now, I know she wants to make this sound like it's all about 12-year-old kids who are just confused because they're going through puberty. And sure, there's an element of that. But in the real world, we've got sexual predators out there who are utilizing these policies to prey on children. And that's the last thing she wants to talk about. So she's trying to muddle the issue. And just understand the message she just sent. If you have a problem with these policies, you're the problem. You're the bigot. You're the fearmonger. That's disgusting. And that's despicable. And by the way, she keeps talking about her 3 daughters. I have 3 daughters. They're going to, excuse me, Madam Spanberger, if I could just take a quick shot. How do you know they're daughters? What makes them girls? Please explain to me the distinguishing characteristics of your 3 daughters that you keep talking about. You brought them up, okay? I didn't want to bring up your kids, but since you're using them as some sort of shield or political prop to explain your position on this, which is incoherent, then fine, let's go there. Explain to me what makes your daughters daughters. What makes them girls? Can you define that for me, please? Yeah, that's what I thought. Meanwhile, Democrats have made a big announcement in the New Jersey and Virginia races that's supposed to be getting you a lot of excitement and really supposed to, oh my gosh, look at this. The DNC is really making an investment, as they call it, in these races. Check it out. 6-figure investments in the New Jersey and Virginia races. Wow. But then actually, when you think about that for a second, that's nothing. I mean, really, if you think about it, the Democrats tweeted this out themselves. As we head into the number 4th elections, we're making major investments to get out the vote in New Jersey, Virginia, and Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is a suburb of New Jersey. I don't think they're getting out the vote in Pennsylvania, though, because, well, they're not registered to vote in New Jersey. That would be illegal. I'm sure they're not admitting that they're breaking the law there. I think they just mean that it'll be ads in the Pennsylvania market, the Philadelphia market. Excuse me, New Jersey is a suburb of Philadelphia. I didn't want to get that backwards. Think about that for a second, though. They're not saying exactly how much it is. They're just saying it's 6 figures. So it could be $999,999, right? That's the biggest 6-figure you can get. But if it were that much, they would have announced that much, right? Right. I mean, even if it were $500,000, they would have announced that much, I would think. It's probably less than that. And it's split across 2 different states. So let's say it's 500,000. That means each state is getting 250,000. Although in New Jersey, they're spending some of it in the Philadelphia market too. You know, when you think about it, That's actually not a whole lot of money at all. Is this really a sign of confidence? Meanwhile, what are Republicans doing? Apparently, there's a surge in spending in Virginia right now, 2 weeks ahead of time. The Attorney General's race, Republicans, $4.8 million. For the governor's race, they're both matching around $3.2 million. And meanwhile, cash on hand for Republicans at this time, the RNC has $86 million. The DNC, $12 million. That ain't great, kid. Not if you're a Democrat. Now, trust me, this is an uphill fight, and I think it will be a miracle if Republicans can pull this off, considering, first of all, let's not forget, these are both solidly blue states. I can't remember the last time New Jersey voted for a Republican. It might have been George Herbert Walker Bush. And the last time Virginia voted for a Republican was George W. Bush. So these are uphill battles. And the fact that it's this close 2 weeks out is a miracle, given the historical trends of what happens in these states 1 year after a Republican wins the White House. That said, there's a chance here. There's a chance. And if the Republicans have that much money on hand right now, maybe they should do something with it.